20. All right. First order of business is approval of minutes from the August 23rd meeting. So,
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Fuller, second by Mrs. Peters. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Also would like to welcome our newest member, Josh, or Mr. King, Josh King. Just let me know if you have questions as we go forward. Thank you. Any special requests or continuances?
None.
Seeing none, we have no findings of fact and no old business. Any old business from the floor? None. There is one item on new business, which is docket BZA 2021-016, dimensional variance request by Stephen and Lori Tyke.
Oh, excellent.
Very good.
I have a difficult name, so I feel for you trying to get it right. 1311 West Curry Road. So all those going to present for or against this docket, please stand and raise your right hand and be sworn in by our secretary.
You swear under penalties of perjury, testimony is true to best of your knowledge.
And if you would approach the podium, make sure the mic is on, and give us your name and address for the record.
Lori Tyke, 1311 West Curry Road, Greenwood, Indiana, 46143.
And Mrs. Tyke, tell us why you're here.
Okay. My husband and I are here this evening to seek variance to build a pole barn on our property. It is a metal pole barn. It will be replacing an old wooden barn that we feel is unsafe and unstable as the last storm and tree hit it. So we'd like to replace that. The new building will be built by Graver Post Buildings. It will be a professionally constructed pole barn. We will not be adding any structures to our property. We'll just be taking the old one down, putting the new one up. And we do not live in a subdivision. We do live on Curry Road, 5 total acres. And we feel that this is necessary to properly secure and safely store our equipment that we feel is necessary to maintain our property.
Okay. And you are familiar with your statements of your findings of fact, your answers. We'll need to read through those tonight to get them onto the record.
Okay.
So if you would like, we can go through those now. Starting with for the request number 1, which is the number of accessory buildings to be permitted. And so the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community because
we do not live in a subdivision. We do have 5 acres of land. We feel this building will improve our property and add to the value. It will allow us to remove an old, unstable, unsafe building and store equipment in a safe, new, and secure pole barn.
Okay, and number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because
this building will not cause any obstruction of current use. It is replacing an old, unstable, unsafe structure. This building will not increase the number of structures on our 5 acres, as one is coming down and one is going up. Other homes on acreage on Curry Road consist of multiple large barns. Therefore, we do not feel that this building will be anything out of the ordinary on our road.
Number 3, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because
currently our property consists of 2 parcels, one totaling 2.023 acres and the other parcel totaling 3.025 acres. We are in the process of dividing the 2 parcels into one 5+ acre parcel. All structures are currently being used to store equipment necessary to maintain the property, firewood for heating our homes, cars for our family of 4, and recreational vehicles. The intent is to tear down the old barn and replace it with the new professionally built pole barn. Number of structures on the property will remain the same.
And number 4, the structure is not regulated under Indiana Code 8-21-10-3 for hazard air navigation. All right, so let's move on to request number 2, which is for the steel roofing and siding to match the pole barn from 5 to 6 years ago. Number 1, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because
we do not live in a subdivision. We do have 5 acres of land. This new pole barn would not look out of place as it would look like the one already existing on our property. The old unsafe barn would be removed and a new safe, secure barn built in its place. We feel this will improve our property, increase the value, and make for better curb appeal.
Number two, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because
This pole barn will be professionally built by Graver Post Buildings Incorporated. It will be constructed in the same location as the one currently in existence, no obstructions. Other homes on Curry Road that have acreage have multiple large barns on the property. Therefore, this building will not be anything out of the ordinary. The pole barn is necessary to securely store equipment needed to maintain the property.
number three, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because
A metal pole barn is practical for our current needs. Our purpose is to have all of our equipment necessary to maintain our property in a safe, secure, fully enclosed structure. The structure will provide a new adequate building in which to securely store lawnmowers, tillers, snow removal equipment, etc.
and number four, the structure again is not regulated under Indiana Code 8-21-10-3 for hazard air navigation. Anything else you would like to add?
This time.
Then I'll open it up for remonstration. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will go ahead and I'm going to try and share my screen from here. We'll see how that goes. So here's the property in question. You can see 135 off to the side of the screen. Just to give some background to staff's comments. So I understand the petitioner has 5 acres. I don't think the issue staff has is the number of structures, it's the placement. You'll notice they're all in a line with the home right up against the street. And the proposal, the building we're talking about is actually this one, which is immediately adjacent to this pond that was constructed with the neighborhood next door. So this is going to be a fairly visible location, and the proposal would more than double the size of that structure. So staff's concern is the structure is coming closer to the street. It'll be closer to the street than the previous barn that was constructed. And you'll be able to see it very easily from Curry Road because of that pond, which is, I mean, it's a detention pond for the neighborhood. It's not going to go anywhere. This will be about 7,700 square feet of accessory use for a 1,700 square foot home. So it is a lot of accessory structure. Again, staff isn't necessarily commenting on the number of units or storage units given the 5 acres, but the location is an issue, and that's also why staff recommends the additional masonry on the structure, because it is getting close to the street and it will be visible. That's also why staff recommended additional landscaping. You'll see down the side of the property, there is landscape there. We feel that the additional number of plants that was suggested in the staff report would help finish that row and kind of shield the structure from the new neighbors. So that's why staff recommended denial in the current form, but we do have conditions that would kind of bring this to something that would probably work a little bit better for the neighborhood.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mrs. Tyke, you have time, 5 minutes to respond here. If you'd like.
That structure is not going to be any closer to the road. In fact, our home is much closer to the road than that structure will be. I'm not sure if I misunderstood, but did you say 7,700 square feet, this new building?
In total for accessory buildings on the property.
Oh, wow. But the one that's there,
The one that's
Yes.
there is 968 square feet.
Right.
The new one would be just over 2,000.
yes, but it is currently in use and we're just replacing it. So I'm not, I guess I just don't see it. It's there now and it's okay to store what we have in it. Why would a newer one not be okay to store in it? It won't be any more visible to anyone on Curry Road than the one is right now. There's a guardrail there and pine trees. evergreen trees. There aren't any other lots that are buildable either behind us or in the cul-de-sac to the side of us. So it shouldn't be an issue for anyone new building on Curry Road.
Mr. Davis?
I just brought up the staff report to show the proposed new location. It's the justification for the staff report. Again, if the conditions can be met, not necessarily a huge concern of staff.
Would you mind to repeat those conditions as I was thinking?
Yeah, I
ahead
can go
of
through
the
them.
remonstrance?
So the conditions would be: one, the structure is not located closer to Curry Road than the current garage, which is approximately 103 feet from the shoulder of Curry Road. Number two, no expansion of the gravel is permitted. Number three, the 7 deciduous trees and 7 evergreen trees added along the eastern face of the new structure to buffer it from the homes to the east. And number four, the structure shall not be utilized for business purposes.
The only thing I think I disagree with is we have to, are you saying we have to plant 7 more trees?
That is the ask under the conditions. So
Actually 14.
well, yeah, it'd be 14, right? It'd be 7 evergreens and 7 trees.
There is not enough room to do that as we are, that current building is on the property line. And you're asking us to move it. I mean, it is 1 foot on one end on the property line, 2 feet on the other end on the property line. But we understand you're asking us to move it 10 feet off the property line. Where are we gonna put that many trees?
In that 10 feet. I mean, you have to be careful about the species selection.
So
That's a lot of trees. There's probably 4 there currently. That's just a lot of trees.
we'll need, I'm sure the board will have questions on all of this, but we'll need to close the public portion of the hearing to ask those. Anything else to add before we close the public hearing?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll close the public hearing. Open up to the board for questions or comments. I'll start actually with you, Mrs. Peters, and we'll go down.
Okay, I guess I'm trying to figure out the staff recommendations is that they place the pole barn back as far as the current garage, but not as, not where the current barn is, back farther than
Mr.
that.
Davis, can you actually pull that picture up that you last had of the lot?
I looked at the Google Maps.
Yeah, or the Google map. Yeah, that one. Because there are some, I heard some conflicting things in the,
Yeah,
in the
I'm
statements.
just trying to understand exactly what the staff is asking.
So staff is asking that the new structure would not be any farther forward than, I wish I had a pointer on the screen, but the tan roofed garage that's next to it, which
Okay.
is approximately 100, that's why I put approximately 103 feet, because that's how far that structure is from the street.
so,
So the current barn is closer, is what you're saying.
The current barn is actually slightly farther back than the garage itself.
Okay, it's not matching what the drawings are.
yeah, so let me make sure I understand here. So as you come down that first, you come down, as I'm looking to it, my right? That's what we're talking about on the right hand side of the house in the picture.
Yes, the building to the farthest right, close to that results table, is the one in question that's being replaced.
That's the old one we have the pictures of. That's the old
The barn.
decrepit barn that's coming down.
The garage mentioned in the staff report is the next building, the second one in from the right.
Okay,
And then the new structure that's been mentioned is the one with the more red roof to the left of the.
that's the newest pole
Yes,
barn that they
correct.
referenced. Okay. Now, the new pole barn will replace the barn coming down on the far right. Correct?
Correct.
And Mr. Tyke, then are the plans for the front edge of that pole barn to be even with, in front of, behind the existing garage there?
In front of, and the reason for that is because, and not adding new gravel, We would like to use what's between that garage and that barn to use as much of that gravel for the garage doors that are going in the new barn. And because we have to move it 10 feet off the property line, if we don't move it up a little bit, it will be unusable because we will not have a way to swing. Say we want to put a boat in there, we won't have any swing between the garage and the barn to do that without moving it up a little and using the gravel that is in existence.
Do you know how much farther up from the garage it will be?
6 feet.
I get,
6 to 10.
from the front of the existing barn.
From the front of the existing, from front of the existing barn? But what is that in relation to the garage that is there on the, across from it?
It would probably be 10 feet or so.
But it would not be past the front of the house.
Oh,
Absolutely not.
absolutely not. Our house sits almost on the road.
So would it extend where the gravel is curving there? Will it extend off of that gravel and into what is currently grass then?
May I? Approach?
Yes.
I
Yeah,
have,
go ahead and stand and be sworn in though.
I'm sorry.
Do you swear under penalties of perjury, testimony that is true, the best or not?
Yes.
And then go ahead and give your name and address also for the record.
Stephen Tyke, 1311 West Prairie Road, Greenwood, Indiana.
Thank you. Mr. Tyke.
The new barn would probably come right up. Actually, the shadow up here is probably about where it will have to go now to be 10 feet off. And it will probably extend up to maybe right here.
Okay. And then it'll come
It'll come back,
down.
yes, south.
Okay.
Art, based on your drawing of the barn, would you have an individual door before you got to the 3 garage doors?
Oh, no.
No.
It's the 3 garage doors and then the service.
Okay,
doors.
Yes, there
so
would be
this is
3 garage
opposite
doors
of
and then
what
a service door
it is.
towards the south.
Okay, all right.
The actual pictures you have in there. the
They're
3D
reversed.
View, it is reversed.
Okay,
And we
that's
did
what I
that
meant.
because, again, we want to use as much
Makes
of that
sense.
gravel as we can.
Because if I come in here, coming off here now, with the new barn, there'll be about 26 feet from here to the edge of the garage, which I have a crew cab pickup truck, and maneuvering the pickup truck would be a task in itself.
Right. And so the far edge of the current barn, it will come in 10 feet from where it is now, is what.
Yeah,
From the
this
property
is
line.
too close, this is too close to the property line now, so we're gonna have to come off
Yep,
probably 8 feet.
okay. And so
So
the
it's essentially over
existing
now.
buffer that is there is still gonna hold to a point.
And the only problem and if I may speak, is if you put trees back here with any kind of root system with a concrete floor, I don't want it to push the floor up and crack the floor. And right now, the back of this barn is covered with poison ivy. So,
I think in that one picture, the first picture where it actually shows the house, you can see the trees that the subdivision planted, they're as
Yes,
tall
I mean-
as.
these all right here are blocking a big portion of.
Which looking at an entire side of metal is got to be better than looking at that side of that barn now. And with the trees that are currently there.
Okay,
Because all these trees, there's one growing out of this barn that wraps up over the top of the barn. All these will have to come out.
yeah. And then I have a question for the staff. So there's nothing in the ordinance around square footage of the accessory buildings, is that correct?
Not
Are they-
currently, no.
Okay, so it's just the number per number of acres. And there's nothing as far as location on the total acreage within the ordinance of where those accessory buildings can be.
Correct. We're merely talking about the number versus the acreage, because all the accessory structures are located on Yes,
The
on
front.
the 2 acres.
And
But
that's-
if it was one parcel, though, there would be no requirement for someone to be on the back acreage. Is that correct?
There's no primary structure on the back acreage. So we can't have an accessory without a primary.
I guess
He's
my
not
question is,
understanding.
if they replat it where it's 1 5-acre lot, if I had 1 5-acre lot, there would be no requirement of where those buildings are on that 5-acre lot.
Correct.
I think there is one or two. I think the ordinance requires it to be in either a rear or side yard.
Okay,
If it's in the side yard, it has to set back. Don't quote me, it's something like 10 or 15 feet behind the front wall of the house.
okay.
But to say it has to go here or here or here, no, the ordinance doesn't address that specifically.
And that was my next question, is then I assume there's some sort of setback from the front. And would this meet that? It sounds like it's gonna be far enough behind the front of the house.
I mean, it would be I don't know that we would meet the 10 feet from the front line. Because I mean, you can see the cars there, the car's 18 feet long. So if the new building's gonna be, you know, what do we say, 6, 8 feet further forward than what's there, I mean, we'd be really close.
What was the question? How far the front of the barn is going to be from the front of my house?
Like in distance to the street.
Yeah, so there would be normally a setback, or within the ordinance, a setback from the front of the primary structure or from the street. And I'm trying to understand if we'll still be in line with that.
And you're saying that the existing barn is approximately 103 feet off of the.
It's a little closer than that. It's because I measured to the existing garage, which is where we were asking it to be moved to. So your the existing barn that we're talking about tearing down is, I wish I could measure on this thing. It's in the 90s.
What does the ordinance ask for?
Like Ed was saying, 10 feet behind the front of the structure.
10 feet behind the front of the structure. Okay,
The primary.
Of
The
the,
primary
that front wall of the house.
front, right. So it would need to be 10 feet from the front wall of the primary house.
Well beyond 10 feet from the front of the house.
And again, our comments are based on the sketch.
So. Well, and I sketched that, so. Yeah.
10 feet. I apologize, Mr. Peters, I come to
No,
your
that's
question
okay.
over there, so.
I mean, you were covering a lot of, I was just confused on why we were using the current garage as our measuring point, which now I understand. You're saying the current garage is 103 feet back. But we're saying that they actually, to be within the other ordinance, can be up closer than that and still meet with the 10 feet back from the front of the house. Okay. And, now the types of trees. Is there some guidance for them to be able to find something that has a smaller root system or something that goes deeper to with any problems to a structure?
Staff is completely willing to discuss what type and what arrangement.
I didn't know if our Parks Department has some
I mean, we have,
experience with that.
we
Maybe
do
you could
have
help.
we do have a planting guide that talks about the mature size, spread. That's certainly what we would look at when this would come in.
Because I can see a concern with damaging a structure by putting a tree in that we're insisting they have to have.
Well, this seems like a big ask of a number of trees to.
I mean,
Yes, sir.
14 is quite a few.
And respectfully, if you will look at that picture with the one that says no trespassing, you can see how stuff has already grown, like I said, into the building. It's under, it's just falling apart. And I really, with only 10 feet between that property line, I don't want to plant another single tree along there at all.
And to your point, you're gonna end up with a metal siding versus this decaying. Siding.
Now, did I understand, or maybe I'm imagining this, is the coloring going to be comparable to the house or the other barn?
It will be
or-
identical to the other barn, same company,
The other
same
pole barn.
construction.
Okay.
And it's a tan, it's not a red, it's a beige and dark brown.
Kind of neutral,
Correct.
okay.
Would some sort of fencing be appropriate as opposed to trees?
Sure.
Like a privacy fencing you're
Or if
talking
you're
about.
really concerned about space, we could talk about, just evergreens in the form of like an arborvitae or something that's very calm. That's,
I would be inclined to ask for some sort of buffering, whether it's arborvitae's or fence from the current landscaping forward that ends up exposed forward. Because we are,
There is a guardrail there too, so you're going to have, I mean, there's gonna
You
be
mean it
space.
runs along the side of the property?
No, the
Oh,
guardrail stops.
It's, yeah, pretty much gonna run up to, it runs up to almost the front of that barn as it is. So I'm not sure where I'm gonna put a tree there that is gonna fit between the building and that guardrail.
Actually, I'm looking at an aerial view and the guardrail stops probably, I'm guessing, 10 feet behind the face of the house. If I'm drawing a line over. So there's pretty big space between the end of that guardrail and the barn.
the other thing is though, that the housing, well, I can't see this far on the other side of the pond, I guess, but the housing's back
It's significantly away
from where the structure is.
Oh, absolutely.
Well,
So.
no, you're good, go
You're
ahead.
good, go ahead.
Go ahead.
They're on that one picture. Did I forget what subdivision that is. It looks like there's probably 3 pine trees
Correct.
on the edge of the pond.
They planted those, yes.
Are they? would they
That's
be right-
Woodfield.
Woodfield. Would they be right on the property line? And they look pretty close.
We feel they're dangerously close to the property.
they're probably entirely on their property, but they're touching the line.
Are they evergreens?
Yes.
Can you zoom back out for a second, please, Mr. Davis? So those 2 houses up on Curry Road on the other side of the pond, are those part of that subdivision or were they?
Yes.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember.
They had-
The
they had
developer
entries.
was required to put a row of lots along Curry Road, bigger lots and bigger houses that fit in more with the size of houses along Curry Road.
Okay, that makes sense. So that explains why they put the buffer there. I'm just trying to understand.
I mean,
Yep, I see it now.
this is, I'm just gonna blurt it out there. What would be the problem if you got a hold of that homeowners association? And say, we want to plant evergreens in line with your evergreens and go 3, 2 or 3 or whatever it takes to be on the front of that building. Don't worry about the back.
I guess I'm just stuck on why would they complain, they're complaining about that ugly old thing now, why would they complain about my little, much nicer, secure?
Well, I understand that
Building.
it's,
I mean, they all had the opportunity to come and speak tonight and say they didn't want it or require that I have it, didn't
that's a good point.
say anything about that up until today. I mean, they received letters in the mail, the signs in the yard.
Probably well.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, I could
It's far.
understand that. The replacement would be.
If I was in that
much
house right
nicer.
there, I would. All right. I have no other questions.
Mr. Foster?
Mr. Davis, you say add trees to eastern line, but you're just talking about the eastern line, it didn't have to be right behind the farm, because there's like 100 feet to the road from the north face of the barn, or, I mean, would that be an appropriate area to put those trees?
Yes, the intent with that comment was from the existing tree road to that guardrail.
Okay,
To the guardrail.
So there is.
so the guardrail is a pond, is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
That guardrail terminates as soon as it touches that property line.
But I mean, there's more room than what I would have
Right.
thought if you're talking about that area, yeah, between the guardrail.
If I had to guess for where the barn's gonna end up.
May I make a statement? If I may?
Sure.
If you can zoom out on that picture. I believe from here to here, I have 14 trees. From here to here. And you want 14 more from here to here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the recommendation. But it was 7 evergreens and 7 deciduous trees, so you were trying to create kind of
Yes.
a
We
big.
also have a septic system there in the, behind that barn. I just don't want any trees, guys. I don't want anything messing with that concrete, and that new building, on anything. We replace the septic system because of roots and trees. You just
Where is
respectfully
your
Can
ask.
you
septic
show us where
system?
that septic system is?
The septic system is going to run, let's see,
Going,
can you bring me a little closer? Sure. The septic system is right in here, behind this garage.
Part of the barn gonna go over it?
No,
So it's on the backside, so it
on the
wouldn't be
backside of the
where you're asking for trees going upward there, right? Or
Yes, it
both.
is.
right, going north.
I think you're asking for trees from
No,
here forward, or
no,
No.
just from the front of the barn.
from the front, you want 14 trees between here and here?
No, what we were just discussing was from the end of your existing tree road, there to the south, between there and the guardrail. So along
Maybe.
that property line.
Oh, you're talking
Here.
that
No.
is, I see.
Yeah, so there's a
There's
pretty
no
good gap.
Yeah, but
Here's
there's
what's-
no building there. Why would you use
And I
part
get,
of
and I
that?
guess.
Here to guard.
Yeah, that's what they're asking. Okay. Just the other question I have then is with the ordinance and the number of buildings that is part of this, Mr. Davis, is there anything in the ordinance that requires buffering for accessory buildings? Or,
No, the reason that was stated there is because of the neighborhood next door, we're adjacent to the property line, and we are before the BZA today for this request. So it seemed an appropriate balance for the request that's been made.
I don't know.
questions, Mr. King?
I don't think I have, kind of hinging on the tree aspect, it seems a lot.
Okay, if no further questions from the board, I'm going to close the hearing. Are all the receipts and notices and everything in order?
Yes, newspaper and notice letters are all in order and in the file.
And the certified copies of the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance are also in the file.
I'll take a motion to accept them all on the record.
Chairman, I move that we admit all the evidence presented in regard to this matter, including the notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner's detailed statement of reasons, the staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of the zoning ordinance and comprehensive plan, testimony of the petitioner, city planning staff, and any remonstrators, and all other exhibits presented, be they oral or written, for consideration by this board in regard to this petition, and to include the testimony of those present this evening.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. Fuller. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. I will take a motion on the ballot itself, keeping in mind you can make any conditions that you like, use conditions in the staff report.
This is a reminder, you normally vote on each. request
Oh, yes.
separately.
Yes, and the first would be on, thank you,
Request number
request number 1.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
Obviously, we haven't talked about request number 2, because we're on number 1.
Mhm.
But if we're gonna require them to put 36-inch base, I assume that's all the way around the goal? Yes.
Was that,
And
that would be all the way around the base?
so you gotta, a good looking building. Then if they agree to that, then why do we need the trees?
Mhm.
I guess is my question. I mean, it's a give and take then. I know we gotta go in order here, but that would be my recommendation.
Am I allowed to ask a question out of order here?
Well, you're still having discussion because you don't have an actual motion on the floor
Not
yet.
yet,
Right.
yeah.
So the question being, are you agreeable to the base, the brick base, if that eliminated our request for the buffer?
I don't understand what day did you say?
So the,
The wainscoting
The-
around the
the wains-
structure.
It is on that drawing, if that way it's not.
Yeah, it is on the drawing that way, yes,
It is entirely around the building.
yes.
It is
Here's
in
a-
between the doors as well.
oh, yes,
Yes.
okay, so it's
It is
all,
on
you're
there.
already planning on that.
It's all, yes,
Okay.
we're already planning.
I think you need to clarify that you're talking about apples and oranges.
Okay,
The staff recommendation is for masonry, brick or brick-like material or siding to be on that. I thought your drawing just shows 2 different colors, like
It
is
is.
on your other building.
But it is wainscoting all the way around.
But is it,
It's not masonry, it's
It's
metal siding.
It's all
Yeah,
metal.
okay.
Oh,
I just want to make
Different
sure
colors of metal.
you're both talking, they're understanding what the other one's saying.
so I'm still saying, if we've got a mason, like what's in request for condition in number 2,
which
we've
is
got
more,
that all the way around, but which is much more appealing, then I would forget the trees.
but it would be more of a masonry wainscot.
Yes, correct.
Would you be agreeable to doing a masonry wainscot instead of?
Yes, it is.
It means like brick instead of
We
metal.
have no brick anywhere else on our property. The house is siding and shingled. The other barn is all metal.
Now, does the other barn have the two-tone?
It would look exactly like the one you see. Yes, it's two-tone, it's wainscoting. No, we would not.
What would the brick add to the structure strength?
No.
It's just pretty.
Well, the concern staff has with all the pole barns we see is their failure point is usually at the ground level. That's where you bump into it with the mower. That's where you trim it, you hit it where you're trimming. That's where mulch builds up over time and then the steel wicks up moisture. That's why staff does like to see the masonry around the base. Because that is where these steel structures run into trouble sometimes.
Now, if no other structure, it's got 3 other structures on the property, have brick. Does that not make it look out of place and not attractive for the neighborhood?
I'll leave that to your discretion.
What did we do on the last building they just built? Or how old is that building?
It's 5 years old and it is not.
It may not require.
All metal.
I'll shut up.
No, we are not willing to do that. It is a considerable expense. I mean, we are talking right now, this is not a Menards pole. I'm sorry, I don't mean to offend anyone, but it is not a $12,000 Menards pole barn. Our estimate on this with all of this, and we're in the $60,000. This is not going to be a detriment to any. It's going to improve our property value and curb appeal.
Yeah, in that case.
I have a motion.
Okay, sure.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the petition with condition structure not be located closer to Curry Road in the current garage is approximately 150 feet from the shoulder. No expansion of gravel is permitted. And I would add, my motion would be they add 3 evergreen trees only to the eastern face, but the eastern property line. Structure shall not be used for business purposes.
So
To the north of the pole barn up between where that railing is to the north side pole barn. Does that make sense?
So when we behind the barn,
Yeah, correct, because there's already a couple evergreens behind there.
let me just clarify.
It's number one that
Number-
you're moving to approve.
yes.
Yeah, we're still on request number
Is
one.
it press one? Yes.
So you're saying not to give them that 6-foot move towards the front of the house by saying with staff recommendation number 1.
I am, yes, in my motion, I'm following
Okay,
staff recommendation number 1.
gotcha.
And then no expansion of the gravel, not to be used for business purposes, but only 3 evergreen trees be added to the eastern property line north of the barn to where the railing is.
Before, yeah, second.
Naomi, if you have a clarifying question.
I think we clarified that it was only moving 6 to 10 feet forward, but it was still 20 feet behind the face of the house.
Mhm.
I would recommend we
Redo the motion.
it's your motion, Mr. Foster.
But if you do that, it makes our first garage door completely unusable because there will be
I
no swing
I,
of the truck.
in order to clarify my statement.
Yeah.
Could we say, and I'm
It
just
must
trying to
be-
help you with the motion, can we make our motion on the first one to say structure not located closer to Curry Road than 10 feet back from the front of the house?
Yes.
Yes,
Would that be fair?
Yes,
Does that make sense to everybody?
yes.
Are we thinking that we understand
Yes,
what I'm
yes,
saying?
that is-
Are you now clarifying your motion?
yes.
Yes.
ma'am.
Okay, so your motion is to approve request number 1, the following conditions. The structure is not located closer to Curry Road than 10 feet
From the
back
back?
from the house, the front
Of the-
setback
yeah.
line of the house.
Yes.
Okay, the front line. And no expansion of the gravel is permitted.
Yes.
Add 3 evergreen trees along the eastern face of the new structure to the north where it meets the guard railing,
Yes,
and the structure shall not be utilized for business purposes.
Correct.
That is a motion.
Okay.
I have a motion.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Foster, second by Mr. Polar. With the conditions as just stated, all those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Now I'll take a motion on request number 2.
Chairman, I recommend that we approve the request to permit steel roofing and siding to the new pole barn to match the existing pole barn built 5 or 6 years ago. Exterior siding on the home is wood with asphalt shingles on the roof. Okay, and no conditions.
Can you repeat that for me, please?
It's exactly
Exactly as written on
request
the-
2.
But no condition.
But no
But no
conditions.
conditions. I have a motion by Mr. Peters, a second by Mr. Polar. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you all.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yes.
Does someone come out and look at, once we get this barn down and we get a site marked off before grader gets there, does anyone from the city come and look and make sure that we're following your guidelines, we're off the property line? Because I don't want any trouble going forward where that thing's built and we're 9 feet 7 inches off the property line. And we have to tear something back. So is there anyone who comes to approve, like, once we get the permit, what the site looks like?
So they will inspect it visually, but our inspectors aren't surveyors. So if the concern is, the 6 inches, then somebody would need to survey the corners of your property. So you'd be able to make that measurement, because that's not something our inspectors would be equipped to do in the field. They would be able to measure it about as well as you would, where they would be able to tell from pond and trees and, the edge of where that sidewalk ended. So that's how they would measure it, so they would essentially get it as close as you.
Okay.
I believe with your permit, there would be a foundation inspection, at which point they should be able to catch something.
And then if we were to decide to, would we be allowed to decide to gravel between that garage and this barn?
If you wanted to change the gravel and concrete,
Yes,
yes, that'd be permitted.
we don't have to come back before you to.
You know, the only thing you might need is if you got out to Curry Road itself, you would need a right of way permit because any work that would actually touch the
Well,
right
it
of way.
would not, it would be like the driveway and then you saw the curb over to the barn, it would be between the new barn and we would be adding, where the existing gravel is, would be concrete.
No,
instead of gravel.
you would not need.
Not need to do anything further, any other permits.
If you started expanding beyond that, we would want to see just how much you're expanding, but if you're just replacing the gravel with concrete,
That would be
you
it.
can do that.
Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
What, is there any kind of setback for these evergreens that you are requesting?
Oh, yeah.
Can they be put right on the property line or do they have to be off the property line?
They
Because
can-
the ones behind the barn look like they're right on the
Right on
property
the
line.
property line.
To kind of piggyback off of our first comments on, the structure placement, since no one, in this conversation is a licensed surveyor that I assume, I would try and keep it at least 2 to 3 feet off of that property line, just to make sure that it's far enough on your side, that we're not making assumptions we shouldn't make.
And you
Right.
said we could contact the homeowners
Yes.
association at Woodfield and ask them if we could put them in line with the ones.
If
they
they're
want.
agreeable to that,
That
you
would be
know,
my
you can-
recommendation.
you can share a letter or an email or something to that effect, we would.
And they have to be evergreens.
Well, it would match what's there, so. What would you want?
No, I'm
That
just-
would match.
Because that'll block our view of the pond from.
Well, I don't think you're asking us to put them, it's not gonna block our view because it's gonna be, it's not going in front of the barn, right?
Yes.
From
From
the
the barn to
Between
the
the
guardrail.
barn
From
and the
barn
guardrail.
to the
To the
guardrail.
barn to guardrail. That way it
That would
doesn't,
block our view of the pond.
It's just going- These are horrible. Can't look in our fields for all these. I'm fine with what it is.
All right,
Thank you.
You know,
Okay.
that's- Thank
Um,
you.
appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yes, thank you both.
He's ready.
Need motion.
Yeah, motion, yes.
all right.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, having considered the statutory criteria, move that we direct Corporations Council office to draft written findings of fact regarding our decision on the variance request presented in variance petition number BZ 2021-016. Said findings to specifically incorporate the staff report and the evidence submitted into record for consideration and adoption by the Board of Zoning Appeals as a final decision and final action regarding this petition at our next meeting.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Fuller, second by Mrs. Peters. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. I do have an administrative note. I noticed the top of my ballot references 015, even though below that on the left, it references docket 016. So I don't know if we need to get that
Correct that and initial it on this
Okay.
list.
All right. That's just, it's a red rose. Okay, any new business from the floor? Seeing none, any announcements?
We do have business at your next scheduled meeting, so we will be having that one.
Forward to it. Any others?
Sir.
I'll take a motion for adjournment. We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Good luck.
Mr. Ferguson, is our next step